G'day. Excuse me while I drink my lukewarm molasses burnt coffee from the local service station. So my daughter rang the other day. Now, my daughter is 26. My oldest daughter, that is. She's 26 and she lives in Western Australia. I am Australian, as is she. And she is still in the southwest of Western Australia. And she's about 5'0" and a dancer who wrestles racehorses during the day. And she has a thing for McDonald's. She has things for McDonald's chai lattes. So she was coming home from dance late on Sunday and she thought she'd stop at McDonald's on the way home. She had a bit of a drive ahead of her. And it was Sunday night, so everyone was like going to McDonald's because, you know, end of the weekend, no one can be bothered cooking. They're just going to grab a quick takeout meal through the drive-through or whatever on the way home before you go back and gear up for the week ahead. Wash the kids' school clothes, you know, all that sort of thing. And my daughter parks in the car park. She decides not to go through the drive-through because she's got like a really loud, rattly exhaust on her car. And she couldn't be bothered like sitting in the drive-through for an hour with like rattly exhaust and diesel fumes and whatever. So she pulled over into the car park and called me for a bit of chat to kill time, to wait for the Sunday night crowds to clear. And then she thought, bugger, I'm going to go in. So she steps inside McDonald's and it's packed with bogans. Now, bogans in Australia, sort of the term of reference you might use for, I don't know, ordinary rednecks, although they're ordinary suburban rednecks generally. You know, the ones with the really strong Australian accents. They're just like interested in like cars and going to work, mate, and having a few beers on the weekend. Real bogans, mate. Nothing wrong with bogans. I am, in point of fact, a bogan. I just don't sound like one. I'm so bogan that I played Guns N' Roses at my first husband's funeral. That's how fucking bogan I am, mate. How bogan are you? I'm pretty fucking bogan. But my daughters are even more bogan than I am. Which means we can usually talk to them as well, because we are them. Anyway, my daughter steps inside McDonald's and it's wall-to-wall bogans, all grumpy. And my daughter's like, we don't do well in like being overwhelmed with stuffy crowds. So she just sort of like forced her way through the crowd. Everyone was like hostile because they'd been there a long time. They're all shitty. She forced her way through the crowd. She thought, I'm not going to stand around in this crowd. I'm going to go and sit at the booth and wait for everything to clear a bit. So she goes and sits in the booth. She's sitting in the booth for a bit, and all of a sudden, a bit of a kerfuffle breaks out. And there's a bloke at the counter, a customer, and he's giving out, as we say in Ireland, or giving a bit of a serve, as we say in Australia, to some poor wee sprat behind the counter. Like, you better get my order right. I'm not paying for it otherwise. And inevitably, of course, the order was a bit wrong. So this guy just starts losing it. Somewhat coincidentally, because like in my last vlog, I was talking about like Falling Down, the film where like an old white guy takes out a gun and terrifies everyone in like a burger joint. I don't know if it's McDonald's. I think it's actually Wendy's. I was told it's Wendy's, not McDonald's, but whatever. Never appropriate to lose your shit at staff in a burger joint because it's not their fault usually, right? Anyway, this guy is having his own falling down. Fortunately, because it's Australia where there is gun safety legislation, no one, as far as we know, is armed with a deadly weapon. Even plastic, plastic cutlery a la McDonald's isn't going to get very far either, I wouldn't think. But anyway, this guy is, and he's old, like he's as old as me, and he's giving a serve to this poor guy behind the counter, how his order is now wrong, and he's not going to pay for it, and he just goes ballistic. And everyone else is just like standing there, not doing anything. And as my daughter said, like, the empath in her was just going berserk because she could just look at the poor wee guy behind the counter and thought, he looks like he's having a really bad day. He doesn't look like the sort of chap that's going to be able to assert himself. He's about 14. This guy's in his 40s at least, the bad customer. And my daughter thinks, well, like, for all we know, this poor wee chap behind the counter is going to go home and string himself up this evening because he's going to think this could be the last straw. The entire world is against him. He's having a shitty life. It's bad enough he has to work at fucking McDonald's. And now this guy. So my daughter can take no more. So she gets up and she gets stuck in. Now I have to add that at this juncture, of course, like Schrodinger's cat, which way is it going to go? She's stepping up to step in against the bully on behalf of the little McDonald's teenagers. But all I get in Ireland is a text while we're out on a Sunday family drive. Of course, it's late in WA, but it's like mid-afternoon in Ireland where I am. And we're on a drive somewhere, and I get a text from my daughter saying that she's just like had enough of the bad, rude customers in McDonald's, so she's like stepped up and she's had a go, but she's shaking all over. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope they're not like lying outside and wait for her, like, because they probably think she's a fucking Karen. And at the same time, I'm thinking, oh my God, I hope like the bogans aren't going to try and like jump my daughter in the car park afterwards for being a Karen. She's texting me and she's like, fucking Karens, meaning the other ones that she stepped up against. So you see, perception is always a double-edged sword, is it not? Anyway, my daughter steps up, pushes her way through the crowd, and there's like bogan teenage boys hanging around, like thinking, fight, 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 like it's all going to kick off. She steps up to the counter and like says to the bogan guy who's complaining, going like, mate, she's like, you're not helping anyone by picking on the guy behind the counter. What is the point of shouting? You're just putting them under more stress, putting everyone behind. They've got like 2 people behind the counter trying to cope with everything. Look at the people in here. Like, what are you trying? And anyway, and then another woman gets up in my daughter's face, like right up, and she starts yelling that we've been here for an hour. It's Sunday night. We just want to get home. And my daughter's like, well, fuck off home then. No one's making you stand here in McDonald's for an hour. Just like this. And this woman says, oh, we live in Harvey. We just want to get home. And my daughter's like, it's fucking 500 McDonald's between here and Harvey. Fuck off and find the next one. Why are you hanging around here like intimidating everyone? Like you're making it worse for everyone. What the hell do you think you're doing? Like, fuck off then. So the young guy behind McDonald's is like taken aback, but like the bogan who's had his ears pinned back for my daughter. So they're like, "Well, I'm not fucking paying for it. Give me a refund. Will you give me a refund?" And the redo when I go like, "Yeah, I'll give you a refund." So I gave him a refund, and one bogan left, and then the other bird who was also in her 40s apparently, she got her burger and just like stomped out, like power walked out, head down, and she left. But like the rest of the crowd dispersed. My daughter only wanted a chai latte. She got a chai latte from a grateful McDonald's staff. She said they were all 14, Mum. They were 14. She says it turned out there were 3 of them, but the third one was literally hiding, like in the back of the kitchen, like terrified because I didn't know what to do with the situation. Then my daughter took a chai latte to a booth and sat down. So there was a mum and a teenage daughter in the next booth, and they just said, "Well, perhaps we better let's leave." And they got up and left because my daughter terrified everyone by standing up and like clearing the bloody room like a policeman. Like she self-nominated herself to be the cop, which in most eyes makes her the fucking Karen, right? But the point is, are we all just gonna just hang back now and just watch people get bullied and cop the rough end of the stick because we're too frightened that someone's going to video us and we'll be fucking Karens? But the point is, McDonald's, a massive global corporation that has been around for like 70 years and since the 80s has been responsible for more deforestation than most fucking fossil fuel companies because they just cut down swathes of rainforest in other people's countries to feed beef. Like, they're a better corporation than they used to be, but they're still like earning billions and billions of dollars. And on a Sunday night, when it is the busiest time for people to come through and get their fucking Happy Meals, we've got 3 14-year-olds with not even a security guard on the door for crowd control. Thank the Lord that we actually do live in Australia, or like my daughter lives in Australia. Thank the Lord I live in the Republic of Ireland, where there is such thing as gun safety legislation, so that it didn't turn to falling down. Because if that shit had like happened somewhere like Texas or Georgia or somewhere like that, then there could have been a fucking body count over like people getting angry because their chips were an hour late. Because you lose your shit and all of a sudden you pull out a gun and then he's pulled out another gun and he says, "Oh, I was just defending myself. I was just defending myself by shooting him first." Thank God it didn't come to that. I mean, it was frightening enough for me getting the text message afterwards from my daughter saying that like she's just like had enough of rude people and she stepped up and like she sorted out people who are shouting at the staff. I'm worried that that the thought that like that she's not safe just walking from the McDonald's out to her car in case people were waiting for her because she's like, embarrass them in public because, mean and stupid people tend to hate being called out for being mean and stupid. I'm glad she didn't get, retaliation, but in America there's a real risk that they're fucking carrying an AR-15 around with them in public lawfully, and that if they kill you, there won't even be any justice. Not that there is such thing as justice after you're dead. It's too fucking late. It's all very well for Americans being, talking about, "Oh, I want to be made whole again." There's no amount of money in the world that can replace a human being. And suing someone after they kill your nearest and dearest isn't going to help. It just ties up the court system. So the point is, McDonald's, get your fucking act together. Bunbury McDonald's, make sure there's a security guard on the door if you're not going to employ adults to manage crowd control on the Sunday evening. It's like, you don't even pay your staff a living wage, and then you put them in these sort of stressful situations where they could probably go home and self-harm because of the attack of the self-esteem and the stress and stuff all day. And don't be like employing like a part-time security guard who's like just going to stand there ignoring it all without any like guts enough to step in because they're too busy just, thinking about the computer assignment they have to hand in the morning because this is just their second job and they don't give a shit because they're not getting paid anyone better than the McDonald's staff. Employ adults. Employ adults that are trained to deal with customers so that no one has to go through this, so that people in McDonald's who had just stepped in for a chai latte don't have to sit there like stressing out thinking, do I have to jump in before some 14-year-old self-harms or some bogan gets out a bloody baseball bat from his car? I mean, all you need is love. All my daughter needed was a fucking chai latte after her ballet lesson, and all of a sudden she's doing crowd control like a bloody cop, nothing to see her move along. I'm very proud of her for being so brave, but Jesus, you shouldn't have to do it in the first place, is the point. Why are people so unkind? That's it. McDonald's, get your shit together. Pay your staff a living wage. Employ security at the door on a Sunday night, and we'll all get along a bit better. Oh, and don't be so quick to jump to the conclusions when you see a white woman jump in that she's a Karen, because she might be the anti-fucking Karen, like my daughter. That's it. I'm Mum Duck. I'm a comedian. I'm an Aussie. I live in Ireland. I vlog. I podcast. Look for me on Spotify. I've got Patreon link in my profile. I'll see you when you've got nothing on.